The All Blacks are said to head to Japan next year. The All Blacks are set to head to Japan next year for the first match between the two nations in 5 years. The game is intended to help Japan promote the Rugby World Cup, which the country is hosting in 2019. Of course, rugby is a growth sport of sorts in Japan, but the proselytising efforts are really going very hard. The Prime Minister Bill English and the head of the NZRU, Steve Chu, are just making the announcement in Tokyo, from where our Deputy Political Editor Chris Bramwell joins us now via Skype. Chris Bramwell, not only Deputy Political Editor, but a former killer number 10, I understand, when you played a bit of rugby yourself, Chris. Hey?
I did. I don't know if I would say I was killer. I was a pretty good kicker, and they said I had good hands, but I hated being tackled.
Yes.
I know.
I don't blame you for that. Tell me a bit more about this game. This is as much as New Zealand can ever give Japan foreign aid. This is it, really, isn't it?
It pretty much is. Now, this game's going to go ahead in November the 3rd next year. It is a proper test match, so it's an international test match, but of course it is an exhibition game, and it's about promoting the Rugby World Cup, which, as you said, is going to be here in 2019. Steve Chu says it's a pretty big deal for both countries, and that for Japan, obviously, they're quite rugby mad, but for New Zealand, it's a bit of a dummy run, not only playing against Japan, who they could, conceivably come up against in the tournament, but also to check out the stadiums, check out the conditions, see what the grounds are like here in Japan. Now, there's been a bit of sports diplomacy on this trip, because obviously I'm here on the Prime Minister's trip to Japan. So sport and trade have been the two big deals here, and that's been kind of taking up most of their time. As I said before about Japan being quite rugby mad, we were given some stats before which were quite interesting. There's 125,000 registered rugby players in Japan.
Gosh.
Now that's the same number as New Zealand, but obviously proportionally, it's going to be smaller given the huge population here. So I think now they're just doing the announcement upstairs in the Imperial Hotel here, and I think it'll be a pretty exciting day when the All Blacks play Japan here in Tokyo.
Yeah, 125,000, you're right. It's a on a per capita basis, it's tiny, but that's from nothing only 10 or 20 years ago, so it is growing. Bill English heading off shortly to meet the Japanese PM. What's on the agenda for that meeting, Chris?
So obviously trade, as I said before, has been a really big deal on this trip, and of course the stalled Trans-Pacific Partnership will take up quite a bit of the discussions tonight. Obviously, since the US left the deal earlier this year, Japan now is the biggest economy left in the 11 countries. So New Zealand has been one of the main countries really driving to keep this deal alive, trying to breathe life into it. Japan appears reasonably positive to that, but the sense is here in Japan that really they're trying to keep the deal alive because they hope in the future that it'll be there and the US can just come back to it. That's really the thing for Japan, is really the US part of it. So they're prepared to go some way towards having that deal alive so that the US can come back. Obviously, another big deal here is North Korea. Given Japan's very close proximity to North Korea, that's a real issue for the Japanese government. They're very concerned about that. Bill English says he wants to hear a bit more about what they know about how North Korea is, well, I guess, getting their technology together to perhaps get some longer range missiles. We did ask about whether or not one could ever come to New Zealand, and he had sought advice on that. He said, as far as they know at the moment, that a missile could not reach New Zealand. But the other thing he's been seeking advice on is around cyber attacks and whether or not North Korea is behind any of recent cyber attacks or could be in the future.
Chris Bramwell, the entire time you've been talking, there's been a train travelling behind you. That is the longest train in the history. It's just finished. It's just finished. It was about 700 carriages. Where are you in Tokyo? Yes, you are. You lucky bugger.
Yes,
what a great old city, eh?
It's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. Yeah, the trains have just been rumbling non-stop. That's the main metro line behind me, heading to Shinjuku. So, and it's coming up near rush hour shortly. So they'll be getting pretty busy.
Oh, enjoy it. Chris Bramwell, who's travelling with the PM in Japan, our Deputy Political Editor. Thank you, Chris. New Zealand exports rugby players, of course.